Morning, everybody. Our intellectual characteristic this term is persistence. So I wanted to do an assembly on this. I'm actually taking inspiration from an assembly that I saw by Mr. Bramley many years ago when I first joined the school about King Robert the Bruce and where he found his inspiration for persistence. So King Robert the Bruce, for those of you that are historians, will probably know that he was born at Lochmaben Castle in 1274. He was Knight and Overlord of Annandale. In 1306, he was crowned King of Scotland. As it was in those days, there were many medieval battles, and in one of those he was defeated. But Bruce himself actually managed to escape and find a hideout in a cave. He hid in that cave for 3 months, and during that time he was at the lowest point of his life. He actually thought about leaving the country and never coming back. What added to this was that 3 of his 4 brothers were executed by the English, and his sister was captured as a direct result of that battle. While waiting and deciding what he was going to do, he observed a spider in the cave. At the entrance of the cave, there was this tiny spider who was trying to build a web. This is quite a challenge for a very small insect, and Robert found it absolutely fascinating watching him. What the spider wanted to do is he wanted to go from one corner of the cave to the other corner, and in doing so he had to throw his web across. So every time the spider tried to throw his web across, he would miss and he would fall down. But this little spider then would crawl back up and throw a web again to a slightly different place, but it kept falling down. But again, he would crawl back up and he would throw it again. And he did this hundreds of times until eventually he hit exactly the right spot and the web caught and the spider was able to continue building his web. Bruce was absolutely fascinated by this, but he was also really inspired by what he'd seen. He realised that problems were not completely insurmountable if you just kept trying and trying again. So he decided to retry his fight, and he told his men this very famous saying: "If at first you don't succeed, try, and try again." He came back and won the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, even though his men were outnumbered 10-1. So what is it that can give us persistence? Well, in our sixth form studies, I've told you before that we actually work to a model called VESPER, and the first letter in VESPER stands for vision. I can see I've made a mistake on the slide, but you'll have to forgive me of that. So quite a well-known saying by Thomas et al. In 2014 says, "When goal pursuit is fueled by personal endorsement and valuing of the goal, commitment and persistence will be high." Now, I'm sure you've had those very frustrating conversations with your tutor or even with your parents about what do you do with your life. And for some of us, that's a really difficult question to answer. Some of you may not be able to actually answer that question for years yet. And that's because you're still relatively young. You've only just come out of your GCSEs. You're just starting your A-level studies, and yet people are already asking you what you're going to do when those are over. But let's break this down a little bit more. So on the very simplest level, having vision is actually just knowing what you want to achieve. It's well documented that students without a goal or vision hit a ceiling and underperform by about 1 grade. So you need to have something in mind so that you can keep hitting your goals as you go through your A-level studies. If you don't have a clear outcome, you don't know why you're actually studying those A-levels, and as a consequence of that, you will be one of the first to show decreased levels of effort. And none of us want to see you in that position. Locke and Latham in 1984 argued that setting a goal that is specific and challenging actually leads to increases in productivity. So we want all of you to actually come up with your vision, come up with your goal, so that your levels of effort remain high. Secondly, it's about making an actionable plan. So breaking down that goal into subcomponents and then identifying the actions that are needed to achieve these. Sometimes, again, that's not very easy, and that's why we don't expect you to do any of this on your own. If you need help, you just need to ask for our help. Finally, vision is about voluntary continuation of goal-directed action. Now, this means sticking to a goal despite any obstacles or difficulties that arrive. Some people call that having grit, or as we would call it, having persistence. Duckworth, who did this, found that gritty students outperformed their peers on academic attainment. Now, that's even more important for you guys today, because A-levels that are in a linear system require stamina to reach that directed goal. So I want each of you to think about how you're going to do this. I'd like you to start having those thoughts over the next weekend, and maybe start having conversations with your parents or your tutor about what your goals might be. Mrs. Duggan, I know, is meeting with each of you, and at that meeting, not only will she be helping you to come up with your study plan for the year, but she will also talk to you about vision. It's really important that at this early stage you have some idea of what your vision is, even if it's only a short-term vision, a short-term goal of making it to the November assessments and making particular grades in each of your subjects. One of the things that we do, or that Mrs. Duggan will encourage you to do, is actually draw out what your goals are. Okay, and so it will be in the format of a vision board or something along those lines, having pictures of things that keep you motivated. Right, so I'm going to finish there for today. I hope you have a good day in your lessons, and I'll see you all soon.